So today's presentation is covering Coaster's Resinous flooring systems, which include our epoxy and polyaspartic hybrid systems, as well as our urethane cement and hybrid systems. So again, our three system types that we're going to cover are the 100% solids epoxy and polyaspartic flooring systems that are more common with the Coaster MPE. Our urethane cement systems and the different application methods with those, and also our hybrid systems with a mixture of the epoxies, the urethane cement, and the urethane top coat to create a hybrid functional and decorative system. Starting off with the epoxy side and the epoxy part of the systems, epoxies are generally two-part systems with an epoxy resin and a amine co-reactant or curative. Obviously, there are many types and classes of epoxy. Our epoxies are cycloaliphatic, so they do have, what that means is they have a degree of, they're very high chemical resistant, very high compressive strength, and they have a certain degree of UV resistance and UV stability. Again, with more characteristics of epoxies, ours are 100% solids. Low odor, we have the two curing speeds, a 4-hour and an 8-hour. They cure to a very high gloss finish. Epoxies are very rigid with very little shrinkage. Epoxies as a whole do have a poor UV resistance and poor UV stability. Like I said, with ours being cycloaliphatic, they do have less yellowing than standard epoxy, but over time, whether outdoors with severe exposure to UV light, you will notice a yellowing effect. They have a very long working time. They're very workable, meeting federal standards for chemical resistance and maintenance and antimicrobial performance. Like we said, they have excellent chemical resistance. They have really great bond strength to concrete. You can create with any of these systems a seamless flooring system that's waterproof from the top down, that is easily cleaned and hosed down if need be, or cleaned in a method that where it's exposed to topical water. These systems are impermeable. They have a very high compressive strength and good thermal shock resistance, abrasion resistance, and impact resistance. Again, some considerations to think about when using epoxies. They may yellow or amber over time in exposure to either elevated heat, direct heat source at high temperatures, or UV light. Our epoxies are moisture sensitive per ASTM 2170, F2170. So these systems can only be used when relative humidity is less than 85%. In any other circumstances, we'll get into how we use our moisture mitigation systems to aid in that functionality and make that work. Again, with the exposure to UV light and everything, they are not for outside use. They may amber or chalk over time in really long-term exposure to UV light. Epoxies are rigid by nature as well, so in situations where you may have extreme temperature fluctuations that cause the substrate of the concrete to expand or contract, the epoxy will not expand and contract with the substrate, which may lead to cracking or spalling or other effects. That's just something to take into consideration. Our system components. Again, Coaster VAP 2000 coatings are a moisture control system for use as a primer in situations where we have high relative humidity and high moisture vapor emission conditions. The Coaster ES is a low viscosity epoxy sealer that's used as a primer for direct application to concrete. Obviously, the VAP is the alternative to that as the primer. The MPE is our multi-purpose standard epoxy. It's used in all these systems with its 8-hour cure, used either as a body coat or as a seal coat for the system. MPEF is the same product as the MPE, multi-purpose epoxy, that's faster reacting with a 4-hour reacting time. MPE color is our pigmented epoxy, available in 16 standard colors. That's also available in regular or fast. With these epoxy products, the mixing ratio is always 2 parts resin to 1 part hardener by volume. Very simple, 2 to 1. Adding on to that, the system components for certain flooring systems, which we're going to get into during the presentation. Color quartz or natural quartz, we stock in Q40 and Q25. Q25 is the coarser of the two, both standard for resinous flooring installations, as well as color chips. They're available in 1/16 and 1/4 inch size. The color charts are available on our website at coasterusa.com, but we do have a large variety of quartz blends and chip blends as well. So going with the epoxy side of the system, these epoxies generally don't have very good UV resistance, so they're used with a urethane top coat, which offers better UV resistance. These urethanes are two-part systems, again with the resin and co-reactant. The main types of classes within this reaction are ureas and aliphatic ureas. Our product is a polyaspartic. It's a hybrid aliphatic, so it has very good abrasion resistance, chemical resistance, and durability, as well as very, very good UV resistance to protect any of these flooring systems from yellowing or fading over time due to UV exposure. As a whole, these urethane coatings finish with a very glossy finish. They are ideal for thin mill applications between 3 and 5 mils. The products are more flexible and durable than epoxy in terms of long-term durability and abrasion resistance. Again, really good abrasion resistance for floors that are exposed to heavy traffic or a lot of abrasion. And these have, again, very little to no shrinkage during their curing and during the service. The pictures that are going along here are of a quartz floor, which was installed with our MP flooring system, MP epoxy with the chip flooring system and the UTC top coat. The urethane physical properties, again, excellent chemical and abrasion resistance, good resistance to thermal shock and bond strength. This UV stable, so it will not yellow is the big thing here. So this is protecting our flooring system from fading or discoloring over time or ambering. Some considerations when installing these products: these are very sensitive to temperature and humidity, especially during installation curing. So it's important to monitor and to record the ambient conditions during installation. They're fast reacting. If for some reason there is a issue where this needs to be recoated outside of the recoat window, normally just it's screened and recoated. Typically, this being used as a top coat of the system, there's not often a need to recoat it, obviously. They are, like I said, fast reacting. There is a shorter work time, about 15 minutes with this product as compared to the 20 or 25 with the MPE products. And these are not obviously used as moisture blockers or moisture control systems, low perm systems. The system components of these kinds of products that Coaster offers: we have the Coaster UTC as our standard hybrid urethane top coat. It's polyaspartic. We have the Coaster UTC LT, modified for low temperature conditions. Again, the urethanes are very finicky when it comes to temperatures and humidity. So in low temperature situations, it may yield a better result to use the low temperature version to aid in curing instead of the standard UTC. And the UTC color is pigmented version, primarily used in thin film systems, which will cover kind of why that is used in those scenarios, but it's available in several colors, which again, the chart can be found on our website. With these products, the mix ratio is 1:1 A to B by volume. So I think we're going to get into now more of the types of systems. We've talked a little about what products are used in what systems, but these are the specific system details. Thin film coating systems are generally just for decorative applications. They're applied between 5 and 30 mils to provide abrasion resistance and chemical resistance. Primarily, they finish very glossy, so they improve area lighting and aesthetics. The floor is very easy to clean, obviously, with it being so smooth. They don't offer a lot of protection from physical or direct impact damage or shock resistance, and they are prone to wear and scratching because that when these floors are filled with aggregate, they have a lot more resistance to normal wear and tear, scratches, things like that. So again, these are more aesthetic and decorative floors. They're primarily belong to be used in dry areas with low impact and limited physical abuse. Again, wet areas with a coating like this may lead to slip issues and potential for people to slip and fall. So normally in wet areas, we wouldn't recommend a smooth system like this. Primarily warehouse, aisleways, light production aisleways with foot traffic, cart traffic, and light fork truck traffic. Otherwise, showroom floors and hangers are the primary use for this. For example, we have a hanger here. Again, the smooth coating and the glossiness of the finish really give that aesthetic look that brightens the room up. That's what we're looking for with these thin film systems for showrooms and hanger floors. Again, not a lot of impact resistance, but this floor is definitely a decorative floor. Very commonly, kind of the most common of all of these systems are chip and quartz decorative systems with epoxy. Usually they finish about 1/8 of an inch total thickness. The aggregate is used to build thickness and to create a little more wear resistance. These systems can be installed with an integral cove base, providing seamless transitions from wall to floor. Installing that cove base as part of the system for a seamless almost bowl effect. The aggregate increases the impact resistance and some of the overall physical properties and strengths. Again, we can vary the finish textures depending on how thick of a seal coat we install or how many seal coats we install. So we can go from a fairly rough texture to provide a lot of slip resistance in wetter areas to a fairly smooth floor in areas that are, it's more important to maybe keep those clean or to have a smoother texture. Again, we talked about the difference where we saw impact resistance in terms of the thin film coatings and the thicker film aggregate filled systems. When we build these aggregate filled systems at 1/8 of an inch or higher, that epoxy is normally between 12 and 15,000 psi with these aggregate pieces. It does a much better job of dissipating the impact of any kind of direct point load and preventing the concrete from shattering or breaking. If we thought about maybe a 5 mil thin film system like in a hanger, that would not do very well to displace that load, and we may have issues with spalling or cracking in the concrete. Chip and quartz systems, these generally belong in areas where protection from impact or physical abuse is required, as well as a decorative look. These are very decorative systems as well. So locker rooms, bathrooms, showers, commissaries, kitchens with systems with that maybe has a little more texture for slip resistance. Warehouse floors can be used as well. That's maybe one where we would go with this flake floor with a smoother texture, easy to keep clean, easy to keep sweep and get dust up. And obviously high traffic hallways, other areas subjected to wheeled vehicles or heavy car traffic because of the impact resistance of these floors. Here's a couple of examples. I think we all know what these flake floors look like and these quartz floors look like, but the beauty is the functionality and the customization of these floors. You can really use any blend. In the picture on the left, they've kind of used different blends to create a pattern. It's kind of, there's a million possibilities here. Some other systems that we have, just a standard flake or quartz broadcast. Normally, the difference between a double broadcast and a single broadcast is not only in terms of physical performance and impact resistance, but with a single broadcast system, like we see on the bottom of the slide here, we would normally use a colored body coat to broadcast into to help to prevent any of the floor or the concrete substrate below from coming through the finished floor. When you do broadcast flake and quartz into these systems with only one broadcast, there may be holidays or voids where we can see the floor through those areas. That's why in the single broadcast, we would normally use a pigmented base coat to broadcast into. With the double broadcast systems, we can use a clear coat to broadcast, or excuse me, clear coats to broadcast into, because that double layers of broadcast will hide any holidays or the voids that we have. The systems are standard. The concrete is cleaned to a CSP 2 or a 3. We prime with Coaster ES or VAP 2000, depending on the moisture condition. The broadcast layer is installed. For the double broadcast, there's 2 broadcast layers installed. Obviously, for the single, 1 broadcast layer to rejection. All of the aggregate that's not after the broadcast, any reject aggregate is swept up, vacuumed. The floor is either scraped, sanded, or anything to remove any kind of loose aggregate. A seal coat of Coaster MPE is installed, and then a top coat of Coaster UTC, the urethane top coat. The thickness of that seal coat, Coaster MPE, or the number of coats is going to determine the roughness or the texture of the floor. Typically, that coat is about 8 to 10 mils, and that gives us a standard for the double broadcast floor. But depending on how thick that coat is or how rough the floor may be after the first broadcast will determine the finished texture. Another system is the MPE shop floor, again with the VAP or ES primer. MPE color body coat, again 1 or 2 coats for a single or double broadcast system with a broadcast of natural quartz, an MPE color seal coat, and a UTC top coat. So we get a solid color, durable shop floor system. So instead of our seeing the texture of the quartz blend, we'll see the solid color. Again, that's our color selection guide available on the website. We have 16 standard colors for our epoxies. Another option are our metallic floor systems, which are installed as the thin film systems with no aggregate. So these end up with a very smooth, very glossy finish. The primer is VAP or ES, with the body coats either being, sometimes we'll install a base coat of a solid color to build off of that. Other times, blend and overlay MPE clear body coats with metallic pigment added to them with the UTC top coat. Again, these are floors that end very smooth. So we have additives that we'll discuss a little bit later on. If a little more texture or slip resistance is needed, we do have some products that can help there. Some of the pictures along the bottom are different effects in these metallic floors that are fairly common. On the right, we have what we'd call veining, where striations and almost veins are installed by certain technical methods when the product's wet. One in the middle is what we call hammering for that hammered copper or finished look. And on the left, we have what we just call blend and overlay. This is when 2 or 3 or multiple different colors of epoxy are mixed at the same time, poured on the floor, blended into each other while the materials are still wet so that they run into each other and kind of create that textured, maybe not textured, but that deep look with the blended colors all together. Some of the additives for our systems are the anti-skid broadcasts. These are aluminum oxide broadcasts that we would throw into a top coat of a system to give a little surface texture, available in medium and coarse. The slip resistant additive is a polypropylene additive that's it's mixed in with the urethane top coat and spread onto the floor with the urethane top coat. It almost doesn't give a lot of physical texture, but it definitely helps in terms of slip resistance and a little bit of grit on the floor. Abrasion resistant additive is another additive that can be added to improve the abrasion resistance and the hardness of that top surface of the urethane top coat. The urethane top coat can also be provided in a matte finish. We do have a matte additive, so if that glossy look is not desired, we can add a matte additive and tone that down a little bit. And the TA fiber is a thickening agent, cellulose fiber thickening agent. That's the product for a long time was Cabosil and these fumed silicas that are very hazardous, make a big mess, and they're very hazardous in terms of inhalation and exposure. The TA fiber is a food grade cellulose fiber that we use as a thickening agent in our epoxies, normally either during concrete repair before the coating goes down for spalls, cracks, but also it's used in the matrix to make that cove-based matrix when we do an integral cove base for a seamless floor. I have an example here of a chip floor system which was installed in an office building several years ago. Again, the floor was cleaned. This is a double broadcast 1/4 inch flake floor system with the urethane top coat. Switching gears, going to our urethane cement systems, the other half of the other side of the coin. UC stands for urethane cement. Obviously, these products are 3 components with the waterborne polyurethane and Portland cement. They have similar characteristics to the concrete substrate in terms of modulus of elasticity and thermal expansion. So they tend to expand and contract well with the substrate. They're not sensitive to moisture vapor. They're able to tolerate elevated pH in the slab and especially at the pond line. They can be used as functional systems or as decorative hybrid systems with functionality and a decorative nature. Urethane cement are three-part systems with a resin, co-reactant, and cement and fillers. So there is a polyurethane resin and hardener, as well as water and cement and fillers. So that's just, the catch here, and what we like to bring up is that there's more than one reaction. In epoxy, there's a chemical reaction between the resin and the hardener. Here we have a chemical reaction between the polyol and the co-reactant and the curative, and we also have a reaction between the water and the cement. So this is a multi-reaction product. They're available in several different variations. We have a self-leveling grade, a trowelable grade, and a product that's used for patching, cove base, and thin film as a primer or top coat of the system. These are low odor, zero VOC products. Normally with the standard urethane cement standalones, you'll end up with a satin finish, but they can be used with epoxies and polyurethanes for a glossier finish. They do, during curing, they are cementitious, so there is some shrinkage involved during the curing of the products. They have good color retention unless they're used in an environment, in a kitchen or a environment, for example, where they're exposed to chemical spills or thermal shock on a fairly consistent basis. Urethane cement systems are designed primarily to be functional and not decorative. So these are floors that are going to be the workhorse systems that are just going to be more functional than aesthetic. Again, these products have very high compressive strength with excellent chemical resistance, adhesion to the substrate, impact resistance, and thermal shock resistance. And again, they are moisture tolerant. Some of the benefits of the system, again, they can be tolerant to not only moisture in the slab, but consistently wet settings. So exposure to topical water and moisture nonstop is not an issue with these products. Exceptional performance when they're exposed to chemicals, whether acidic or basic. They're very resistant to thermal shock or thermal cycling or shock due to severe temperature changes. They withstand much higher temperatures, and they are steam cleanable in kitchens or environments that are steam cleaned and need to be cleaned at high temperatures. They are capable of expanding and contracting with the concrete substrate to ensure a very good bond to the substrate, again, because of that flexibility, and they're not as rigid as the epoxy systems. And these meet USDA requirements for cleanliness and antimicrobial performance. They are solvent-free, zero VOC, and lead contributing as well. And again, we talked about the adhesion and the bond strength to the substrate. Now, the flooring products in this line are the Coaster UC 100, 200, and 300. The UC 100 is a self-leveling, slurry-applied product that's applied like any kind of self-leveler or slurry with a squeegee or a sled rig, normally between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. The UC 200 is a trowel-applied urethane cement mortar. Again, a 3-component product. This is normally installed out of a either by hand or through a screed box, usually pulled through a screed box and finished by hand to compress and bring some of the resin to the top surface and kind of finish and close the surface. Finally, the UC 300 is the thin film system that we use either as a primer, as a top coat for the systems, or for coving and patching and concrete repair, as well as, like it says, use as the seamless cove component to create a seamless floor system. The standard urethane cement flooring systems are the standard UC self-leveling slurry system with a UC 100 base coat and a UC 300 top coat. When we talk about installing these systems, normally we prep the floor to at least CSP3. For any rougher floor, we would normally recommend priming floors with bigger voids, or at a more texture, we recommend priming the floor with the UC 300. But the standard installation on CSP3 is a UC 100 base coat with the UC 300 top coat. The Coaster UC 200 trowel down system, again, is a standalone trowel down slurry that's installed mostly out of a screed box and finished by hand or with normal finishing tools, concrete finishing tools. The UC shop floor is a UC 100 body coat with a quartz broadcast and a top coat of UC 300 used hand in hand with that UC 300 primer. So these are all systems that only use or utilize the urethane cement products for their, again, primarily functionality and not aesthetics. These are some of the UC hybrid systems. So these hybrid systems use the shock resistance, thermal shock resistance, and high compressive strength of the urethane cement systems. Combine that with the decorative effect of the quartz and the epoxy and the abrasion resistance of the urethane top coat to create a functional and decorative aesthetic floor. The UC hybrid shop floor is a primer with UC 300, the thin film coating. The self-leveling slurry UC 100 is installed with a natural quartz broadcast. And then an MPE color seal coat is installed on top of that with the UTC top coat to create that colored pigmented shop floor with the higher functionality and the physical characteristics of the urethane cement. The other system is the Coaster UC hybrid system with the chip and quartz. This is the primer with the UC 300. The UC 100 body coat is broadcast into with the decorative flake or quartz broadcast. Usually again in a single broadcast stage. An MPE clear seal coat is installed over that with that UTC polyaspartic top coat. So again, this is more of a decorative system with the functionality of the self-leveling slurry UC 100 and the higher physical properties in terms of compressive strength, in terms of expansion and contraction with the concrete, and overall resilience. Again, so when we talk about UC, that is fairly sensitive to temperature and especially humidity and potential standing water, because again, polyurethanes, as a rule, they don't get along very well with water. So this product obviously is a polyurethane hybrid with cement that has water as a raw material. When we mix these products, we have to make sure that we're monitoring mixing time, that we're monitoring that we get a good blended mix, and that we don't offset either of the reactions there by overmixing or undermixing or leaving clumps in the material and so on. So ambient temperature of these systems during installation is usually between 50 and 90. Like any kind of flooring installation, we want to be at least 5 degrees above the dew point during installation and curing. Relative humidity at least less than 90%, especially with these urethane cement products. Any elevated relative humidity is going to greatly shorten your working time. We want to avoid any standing water on the substrate because we don't want to throw off the reaction of the water to the cement or the polyurethane reaction that happens during the performance of the curing of the product. And again, we want to check any substrate for conditions that may affect our install, such as chemicals, any kind of water leaks or drips or anything leaking onto the substrate. And there's always people standing by, other trades working, ready to walk right into your coating or flooring system as it's installed, or traffic in the area. So like any kind of system, we want to make sure that we watch, be aware of our surroundings and our conditions during installation. So all we want here, especially with the urethane cement systems, we want a functional floor. It may not be as aesthetic as some other floors, but it is a functional, high strength, high wear floor. This is an example of one rehab. Again, so we have a kitchen here with quarry tile that had spalled. Obviously, very hard to keep clean, especially once mortar starts to break down and tiles start to come up. So we can go in, we can install that seamless system with the either UC 100 to 200, that UC 300 top coat, and now you have a flooring system that's very easy to clean and very, very chemically resistant and wear resistant. So we don't have to worry about spalling tiles and potential contamination and bacterial microbial growth in the concrete or in the grout or below those tiles. So we just want a functional, nice floor that eases worry about kind of cleanliness and physical performance. So finally, comparing these two systems, the epoxy and the polyaspartic systems have great chemical resistance, great bond strength. We can vary greatly that finish texture to meet any kind of project and condition requirements, especially with any kind of the skid resistance or slip resistance broadcast or additives. No shrinkage in these systems. They are UV stable with the polyaspartic top coat, and they're very easy to install with very, very good workability. The urethane cement systems are tolerant, again, to moisture and constantly wet settings, and especially primarily moisture in the slab and relative humidity and high pH. Again, going off that, it's great chemical resistance and resistance when exposed to basic or acidic chemicals. These are much better for steam cleaning or high temperature cleaning of the flooring systems because they can expand and contract with the slab, and they do very well in terms of thermal shock and thermal cycling. Yeah, again, they're capable of expanding and contracting with that substrate. Again, any of these systems can be used as decorative floors with the hybrid systems, and we can also use the integral cove base to create seamless floor systems with any of these installation systems. I know we don't get too technical about product specifications and information application procedure in this webinar, but if you do have any questions in terms of exact product specifications, first of all, installation procedures and specs are available on the website. Any product information is also available on our website there at coasterusa.com. You can also use our website to find information about material representatives and to contact me in terms of with any technical questions or your local sales representative.